In this third part of 16, working with text and graphics, I'm going to take the shapes and the text and the audio that I have synchronized, and I'm going to add in some arrows and show how I time those with shapes and with the text so that I get a smooth transition to introduce ideas during a presentation. Now, if I wanted to do something a little more visually appealing, I might want to add something like one of my arrows. And here's where things can get a little dicey. I want to put some arrows in here. I need to be careful because dragging graphics into a title box that already have graphics in them can cause them to blow up. So I have two options. I can either work with the existing box or I could add another graphics box, move it below or above, wherever, so that I could layer these the way that I want. That's a little bit of extra work. It's not hard, it just takes more time. I'm going to go ahead and try to add a couple of arrows here. Adding the arrows is going to be the same process as adding the ovals. So I want to make sure that I get a color that's not going to conflict with the backgrounds, the text, or the other graphics. And I don't have a whole lot of them in here. I've got a few. I think this orange here is going to look okay. So I'm going to pull that over. Now, when I pull it over, I'm going to try to hit an area in between everything, because if I don't, it can wipe out the other graphics. The graphics will vanish. And then I have to hit the back arrow, which doesn't always work, or something like that. I should have brought the arrow in for the other direction. This one's going to be kind of funky. But let's go ahead and push that there. I'm going to rotate it. And the idea is to have this pointing to the next element so I can stretch that out. That's not going to look bad. Once I've got it there, I can go ahead and set the order. I want it to go to the back. It looks kind of funky if it's sticking out front. So now it's going to be in back of this. And in a second, I'll time that. So let me bring in another arrow. Let's see. I think the green one would be fine for that. And again, I have to be careful. I'm getting some clutter over here. I've got a lot of graphics. I don't want to wipe any of them out. I don't have to worry about the text because the text is in another layer or text box up above it. And this is the funny thing. There are layers inside the text boxes. The text boxes on different tracks can be considered layers as well. So I'm going to bring this one here. I have some down left arrows that would work better here. But for demonstration purposes, I will use an arrow that's not exactly the one that's the best fit for this. Or it might be. I'll make it work. So I want that to point down to that. That's going to look pretty good. Let's go ahead and send that to the back. All right. Let me bring in one more. Do I have my pink arrow in here? I don't. I don't have my pink arrow. All right, I'm going to bring the yellow over. Or tan. This is tan. Let me bring the lemon yellow. Lemon yellow. All right. All right, now I've got to dodge ovals and other arrows. All right. That over here. And I mentioned before when I created these arrows aren't huge. And I've sized them way, way down. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. Anytime I bring them into this window, they're huge. And I have to resize them like this. And again, this is something that takes time. So if you're not patient or you're in a hurry, this is not going to be the process that you want to get involved with. So this is very time-consuming, tedious, whatever. Visibility is tough when you're working on this stuff. Like I'm trying to find the rotate handle here. And it's not exactly visible. I know it's right through here. And it flashes, but... all right. Let me move that back just a hair. Send that to the back. All right. Now I have my arrows. Let me name these. That's orange. I try to go with 3 letters and 3 letters. The orange, I put 4. That'll be all right. And then this is the arrow. Yellow. All right. So now I want to add a motion to these arrows. And I may start seeing the box doing weird things. I'm going to go ahead and move my playhead here to the edge. That's going to give me the timing. And I'm going to go ahead and pull these out to match. Now the timing on these and arranging them isn't hard, but it can get to be a little bit tricky depending on how fast you're talking. When I first started doing voiceovers, I had to learn to slow down a lot. So what I want to do is I want to time the arrows to come in right before the ovals that they're pointing to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the playhead. Now the first arrow obviously there is going to come in with that second. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this orange arrow and pull it here. I'll go over here. And pull my green arrow here. And this is why I name them, because it can get confusing. And then I'm going to bring over my yellow arrow here. All right, you hit OK. And let's see how that looks. This is the first item that I'll be working with, and the first thing to do is add the text. Once the text is in place, I'll add the graphic and size it to fit the text. The next step is to arrange the graphic and text on the screen. Now I'll time the text to the audio as I've done in the past. Okay, so that timing works pretty well. And I have a pretty smooth transition where I'm ending this paragraph. This is about to fade in, but the arrow comes in maybe just a split second before this comes on. I'm pointing to the pink arrow. I don't have a camera going. So I should use a mouse. So this is coming in right before this comes in. As this element comes to an end, the green arrow shows up and fades in right with this, just a little bit before that, and then the yellow area as well. So this is all timed very well. Now I want to go back and talk about the longer list. Now let's say that I've created a list and everything, and then I decide to change it like I did with this. And I want to use all of the elements that I put in the text box. And maybe I want to reuse some of these elements and arrows, but I don't want to recreate the whole thing. So one thing I can do is after I get past this fourth element, let me go back to my list, see what number 5 is. I don't have a script here. 5 is time the graphic to the text. All right. Well, I could look at my markers. So that would be element 5. So the first one begins, let's see, this is the first item that I'll be working with. Okay. So there's the first item. There's the second, third, fourth. This would be the 5th item. Okay. So what I can do, I'm going to use the same background. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock my grid if I'm using one. And a grid is good to use to size the ovals and things like that. So I'm going to lock the audio. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the razor blade and split this. And now what I can do is come back over here. Well, let me isolate that. Come into this title, and I can turn off the elements that are visible. So I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn on 5, 6, and 7. And I can go ahead and see where's 4 at. Here, I can find where 4 comes in. Well, 4's already come in, so this is easy. This is easier than I'm making it look. So number 5, I can bring that back to the beginning. I can bring all these back to the beginning. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and be able to retime those. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and enlarge this a little bit. And maybe use them in the same positions. Now, these graphics are going to have to change because let's see, 6 might work. I'm going to slide it over here. I know about where these ovals are. This is cheating, really. Okay, so I can put these about there like that. Now let me go down here because I've already split this. So I've got the same ovals that are here. This is a long, drawn-out way of doing this, by the way. All right, so the first... Let me move these back to the beginning here. All right, so the teal upper, that's probably going to stay where it's at as far as timing goes. Let me go ahead and resize this. To fit that. And then I can go over here. I can move that. And then move this one, 5, 6, 7. And then the oval teal, I don't need. That element won't be there. And then the yellow arrow won't be there. So I don't need that. So I'm going to turn the visibility off on that. Now, once the audio is timed, I'll go to the graphics and time them to match the audio so they transition together. All right. So let me grab the pink. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. All right. So I need to go back to the text and time, make sure those are timed properly. Ah, they're not timed. Okay. So I need to time the text first. All right. I split that track. It didn't split. I don't know why it didn't, because I was clicked on the other track. Okay. All right, so I need to time the text after the split. Once the audio is timed, I'll go to the graphics and time them to match the audio so they transition together. All right. So I'll bring 6 in. 5, really, there's more of a sentence there. I'm just going to go ahead and bring that in at the beginning. It might not have been a great place to break that paragraph. I can also add things like arrows to the graphics as well. Okay, so that was about right. I can bring in 7 now. I size the arrows, position them, and then send them to the back for effect if I want. All right. I really didn't have anything in there for this. Now I'm going to move this here. This actually should bring in the last point. Now I can time the arrows to All right. So there's that. So the text is now timed. So I can unlock my graphics and go in here. And I can, okay, so the first one there, the teal is going to come in with that. So then, so the pink oval's going to come here. And then I'll bring the orange arrow to here. And I'll go ahead and get the last. So this is the blue oval. Bring that in there. And then that's the green arrow. So I'll bring that in. Come in a little bit before that. All right. Well, it's coming in at the same time. I want it to come in a little bit before. All right. I may have to play around with that. This gets confusing. You can always wipe things out. Let's take a look at this, see what it looks like. Once the audio is timed, I'll go to the graphics and time them to match the audio so they transition together. I can also add things like arrows to the graphics as well. I size the arrows, position them, and then send them to the back for effect if I want. Now I can time the arrows to transition in with the previous graphics. Okay, so the only thing I need to do, the timing, I would tighten the timing up a little bit here. What I need to do is I need to reposition things slightly. I'm going to bring this over here. There we go. All right. And I can sense these elements. I think I'm going to move that right there, and I will adjust the text here in a minute. The green arrow. Okay. I think this might be a little bit. And the problem there is trying to select something, and they're all crowded in. All right, that might look better. All right. Let's take a look at that now. See how I got to move the text. Okay. Let me adjust that text. And go over here. Okay, 7's got to. There we go. For some of these, I could even actually enlarge them just a little bit. These are on 24. I could probably go with something just a little bit bigger. I could go a little bit smaller with the ovals. Right now, I just want to demonstrate the process of getting these in place and getting the timings. So let's take a look at this now, see if it looks any better. Well, let me go back to the beginning of the of that title there. Now let's go up because I want to see the whole thing. Once the audio is timed, I'll go to the graphics and time them to match the audio so they transition together. I can also add things like arrows to the graphics as well. I size the arrows, position them, and then send them to the back for effect if I want. Now I can time the arrows to transition in with the previous graphics and text, or at any time that fits the presentation I'm working on. Okay, so that actually looks pretty good. So that is backgrounds, text. I did a list. I put in some shapes and things. I've shown how to time those. I've demonstrated some of the problems that can come about doing those kind of things. So next, we'll go to the next stage, which is getting ready actually for a final render, I think, almost. So anyway, that will demonstrate how to place the graphics, how to integrate shapes, how to time them, how to visibly arrange them so that they look good. I've talked about text and text colors and contrast and things like that. One of the big mistakes that people make with PowerPoint or with any kind of presentation is they don't realize that you can't have dark text on a dark background. You can't have light text on a light background. You always have to work with contrasts. It's contrast that makes the difference and makes it visible, makes it visual. And with these additional shapes, like these ovals, that really helps to make everything stand out. And of course, that's off because I moved everything. So anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. Somehow that got separated and it wasn't right. I will cut that out. Anyway, so that's how to use graphic elements. If you needed to add additional tracks for additional elements, just remember the stacking order. Things that are lower here will be behind everything. If you wanted to put something in front, you could add it above. That's another way of layering things. It makes it harder sometimes to time things, but that's all doable. Alrighty, ready to move on to the next one. All right, in the home stretch, it's time to add an end slide, audio, text, and a final outro video. In this video, I'll show how I add these elements to prepare for the next video or end the series.